you were hosting our conclave in UP's office.
Yes.
Ah,
So we have also Gaurav. Gaurav is a chartered accountant from Delhi.
Hey, hi everyone.
Hi.
Morning, Gaurav.
Hi
So,
Tim.
hello everyone.
Excited
Good
to
morning,
be
good afternoon, or maybe even good evening in whichever part of the world you are joining us from. My name is Deepak R. Khemani, and along with my co-host Abhijit Sansgiri, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this 231st 231st non-stop Sunday Bloom Talk Show. An idea which was born during COVID times that, let's get together, let's bring in people, let's learn from each other, let's try and make the world a little bit a better place to be. 231 weeks, come rain or shine, online or offline, at 12:30 afternoon India time, we have been on air every Sunday since then. In that journey, we have touched all the continents of the world. So we have had people from the Americas, the Europe, Asia, Australia, Africa, and even Antarctica. You will wonder, how about Antarctica? Well, we have a member of us who was a scientist and he's been to Antarctica thrice on a government expedition. So we've covered all the continents. You name them: speakers, trainers, coaches, influencers, doctors, nurses, athletes, anybody from whom we can get that little bit of spark, little bit of inspiration, that little level of motivation so that we can all go to the next level. Continuing in that series, we have a very special guest today joining us live from South Africa. It's early morning in South Africa, and let me thank Tim Wanger for joining us in the Sunday Bloom Talk Show today. Let me hand it over to Abhijit. Abhijit, do you want me to give a small intro of...
Yes, you should.
What we normally do, Tim, is, many people say, do give me an intro, but I'd like to do this. Instead of me introducing you, please introduce yourself to us and the audience. Tell us a little bit of what you are, what you do, why do you do, and we'll take the show ahead.
Yeah, perfect. Deepak and Abhijit, thank you so much for the invitation. Absolutely wonderful to be coming from you all the way across the land and pond from Cape Town in South Africa. So yeah, Tim Wagner's my name, and I'm a previously burnt out corporate executive. So I left that corporate world in 2018, had no idea what was going on with me, why I'd gone from high functioning, high energy to just absolutely disconnected from the world, from business, from family. And I went on a journey that spanned 4 years to try and discover, who am I? Why is this happening? Where am I going with my life? And I was about 50 at this point, so very young to be asking these amazing questions. And one of the things that you'll see my title says professional pointer. So I now work and point high functioning teams and business leaders in a new direction, because I've learned that you can actually overcome these stress cycles and you can prevent burnout with some very, very basic fundamental tools. One of the things that I use is the power of breath work. And that became the fundamental changing point in my journey, is learning how to breathe, which is quite remarkable.
it started.
I know in India, it's a massive part of what you do, but it's not in South Africa. And so I then speak about the holistic approach to well-being and mindfulness, using the power of breath work to businesses to virtually take the story of where I was and say, there is something else you can do about it. That's what I do now. Back over to you, Deepak. Abhijit, have we lost it?
So, no, I'll take off from here. So our topic is true success for 2025. So what exactly would we mean by success? Because success would mean various things to various people, especially across continents, across cultures. So what would true success mean? And I would say success personally and professionally. So we set the context and then go ahead.
Perfect. It is such a personal question. everybody's
Yeah.
definition or version of success is unique to themselves. In my journey, and I've been doing coaching mentoring for 16 years, and one of the key things that I've identified is that people don't know who they are and who they want to become down the line. Not what they want to do, but who. And not why they want to do it, the attainment of goals and dreams, money, new house, new car, but who they want to become. And so they go on down a journey of looking and hunting for success and grasping at these magic things for instant money or instant weight loss, and which, yeah, I've tried them. That didn't work. I'm sure there's some people who are listening here going, yeah, been there, done that. These get rich quick schemes and all these types of things. We try these, we want that. And a big part of the failures or the preventing people from achieving success, I don't like that word failure. I don't believe people fail at anything. We learn lessons, is that we don't actually know who we want to become and what we actually want to get out of life. What is our service to life? And if you don't know that, doesn't matter what path you go on, you will struggle, you will find strife, and you will find stress. So from my perspective, it's to discover what is your real definition for yourself personally of success. And only when you know what it means to you internally, not intellectually, heartfelt, then you can start. So it's a very individual one, whether it's family, community, religion, church, or whether it's your business, your job. You got to start identifying and saying, but who am I and who will I become? And that's a key part of what I've learned in my journey. As I said, I went out and hunted for 4 years to try and find out who am I outside of corporate world, because I had no idea. And only then could I start saying, that's what success means to me. And that becomes my purpose.
I think this is quite profound. I think we need to reflect deep to actually know who we are, what we want to be, and as you said, what's your purpose in life. But how does a layman who's not either intellectual or spiritual go about finding his true purpose?
Wow, that's an amazing question. And I find that even highly intellectual people, very successful business people, don't even know that answer, because they haven't gone internally to try and work out, why do I do what I do? How come I act like this? Maybe it doesn't feel good, but I go and do it anyway. And that goes into the mind and the pre-programmed paradigms or the states of thinking. So in the time that I went hunting for my answers, I tried 4 years doing it on my own. And while I was successful in many businesses, I was also, just as quickly as I made money and found what I perceived as success, I lost it. It vanished because I was not on my true path. And it was only when I actually reached out to other people who had achieved what I defined as success and asked them for guidance, took on a coach, attended many seminars, coaching programs, then I realized I did not intellectually have that information in me to find it on my own. Because if I did, I would have done it. And I had to realize I got to go outside and look for other people and ask for their guidance. And that's where coaching comes in, or finding a guide comes in. And so a key part of what I would believe is put your hand up and ask for guidance, ask for help. Doesn't matter who you are, what level of knowledge or education or business. You need to be able to be confident in yourself and say, I need some guidance. So yeah,
that's what you say is key. You need guidance. You need a coach who can give a different perspective to what your thoughts are. But I think in this world where we purely materialistic, I think your achievements, your wealth, or your qualifications, I think that's a definition of success, which even if you may not be wanting it, the society expects that from you. So how do you balance those views when, let's say, somebody like me at this stage just wants to be happy in life, just be relaxed, just enjoy. But there are people close to me who expect me to do a lot more maybe there is a fact that each of us feels we haven't achieved our potential. So, and that's where we get stressed. So, continuing in that, how do we achieve that golden balance?
Sure, that's a great way of putting it, the golden balance. So a little of my story, I'll share it from my answer from that perspective. When I made the most difficult decision of my career, and yet the easiest one to actually make, was to leave. This was in 2018 when I walked out of my corporate career. Family and friends thought, what's wrong with you? You've got success. We had the house, we had overseas holidays, we had cars in the driveway. We were living from the outside a perceived successful life. Yes, I was stressed. Yes, I worked long hours. But society says that is a definition of success. And stress becomes part of life, right?
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
But inside, I was destroying myself. I wasn't happy. I was not feeling successful. I was not comfortable. I was stressed. And for years, I'd been wearing a mask. And I would then go out to the world and act in a way I believed society wanted me to act. And so there became this disengagement. On one side, I describe it like being stretched like an elastic band. On one side, you've got this person that you're living, the stress-filled, you work harder, you work longer hours, you go out and you strive for success and you want to do more. And on the other side of this elastic band is this true, authentic person. This person I wanted to live. But what leads, I've come to learn, that leads to this burnout is the stretching further and further. And the further you go apart from your authentic nature, the more stressed you become, the more angry you become, the harder you think you got to work, the more distant you become from people, until eventually, for so many people, that elastic snaps. And when it snaps, it's burnout. So we live a life we believe society expects of us to live. But if it's not your nature, you're going to struggle. So we are taught, and unfortunately, it comes from school and parents, preachers, teachers. You're taught that you've got to be a certain way. You have to achieve certain things, money, business success, community leader.
Yeah.
So in that way, when you're trying to live somebody else's version of success and not your own, that's where you get the challenges and problems. And looking back years later, that's what I realized had happened to me. So it's trying to find your true nature and stop looking for other people's definition, recognition of success and other people's ideals, and stop worrying what other people think. Because here's the question, maybe I'll turn this over to back over to you, Abhijit, is how many times do other people actually think about what you're doing? Because everybody thinks about themselves.
Agree. So the two very important words you brought out, stretch and stress. So you stretch to that extent that it doesn't lead to stress. You would need that much stress to push yourself, because otherwise you will be completely in your comfort zone and not taking any push forward. But that stretch, as you said, has to be within your authentic self so that it doesn't lead to stress. Some mild stress, what they say is you need some mild stress. So that's where I think people find it very difficult to get the true balance. And now I'll talk of when you talk a lot about organizational success, which is your key focus area. When the organization stretches you for certain goals and targets, how do you handle that? So there might be organizational success, but personally, you might be completely burnt out. So what's the way you suggest for individuals as well as organizations to take this forward?
We could have a whole seminar just on this.
Yes, and I'll just give you one aspect on this. There was but there's a huge corporate in India, one of the largest corporates in India, and the CEO of that corporate said that we should work 90 hours a week, 90 hours, and this was widely circulated everywhere on social media, and everybody is commenting on it. We had one more very senior corporate leader talk of a 70-hour week. Whereas in India, normally we have a 50-hour week. So from a 50, there are two very senior corporate successful CEOs of, I would say, the top 10, amongst the top 10 corporate companies in India advocating a 70 and a 90-hour week. So that's where is the employee well-being? So you may get an organizational success, but where is the individual success? So how do you balance that game?
If an executive of a massive company that's hugely successful says to be successful, you need to work 70 or 90 hours a week, is that not their personal definition of success?
Yes,
that's what
yes.
they've done.
They've done to reach that level.
Right. That's what they required. But how many people actually would aspire to that level of success in life? How many people actually want that? How many people want to be the Elon Musks of the world who never stops? Because even he says, you don't want to be me. Right. So it goes back to, well, what do you actually want to be? And if you want to be an Elon Musk or an executive of a top company in India that you're talking about, then 90 hours a week is what's going to be required of you. Do it. But if you don't, if you want that success, but you only want to do it in 50 hours a week, you've probably got a bit of a challenge and a problem, and you're unlikely going to get there, because that's not the type of person who will get to that level of esteem, recognition, success, business success, high up in the company. Somebody doing 45, 50 hours a week is not going to get there. So it goes back to, well, what do you want as an individual? So when I look within high-functioning teams in businesses, I've got one present client whose team was struggling because they had to implement a whole new management system on top of their work, and it was added hours on top of a already busy schedule. And when I was having a chat with her, she was talking about the project, and the business needs the project, and the business needs this. And she stopped and she said, I've got it wrong. The people are the project. So without the people, the business is not going to get anywhere. And they'd focus so aggressively on what the executives required of the team. That's the amount of work you got to do. You've got to go and do this, and we expect that. But the people turned around and said, but it's called what I call WIIFM. What's in it for me? In other words, if they don't see a personal gain, if it's not aligned to who they are, they're going to fight against it. Doesn't matter what the company says. The employees are going to go, but I don't want to be the director or the CEO and work 90 hours a week. Thank you very much. I love my sports, my family time. I want a different balance from what you have. So when a company gets disconnected from what the team actually want, and the team's then saying, well, that's not what I'm looking for. Why am I doing this? It's called, there's a whole new definition. I've called it the well-being curve, where people start feeling signs of stress and anxiety. And it leads down the line into burnout. So stress and anxiety being emotional states, burnout being a complete mental and physical breakdown. But it starts with identifying the stress and anxiety. And Abhijit, you speak about company stress, pressure, workplace pressure. But that's important, otherwise nobody would do anything. So that's positive stress. Then you've got the negative stress, where the people aren't seeing a value in this pressure, and they start emotionally having a negative reaction, because stress is an emotional internal reaction to external circumstances. So the stresses are outside of you. but it's how you react internally, emotionally, and mentally to those external things, which will then depict how you act. Yes? Stay in that state for too long and you become anxious. And that buildup of this anxiety happens over periods of time, and you become anxious even when there's no external stressor. You remain in a high stress state. Then on the far side is burnout. Now, I'm going to, I hope you don't mind to interject if I go off the topic, but this has become a huge passion of mine, a very, very strong focus. Because when I was in the corporate world, I never actually hit burnout. Burnout being a complete mental, physical breakdown. You can't get out of bed. You have no energy. You're not arguing. You're not even turning up to work. That's burnout. But I never burnt out. And I was further than anxiety. So on this well-being curve that I speak about, there's a new stage. And there was an article written by Professor Kimball from Harvard many years ago, where he introduced something called brownout.
Oh,
have you heard of brownout before?
No, never. Yeah.
All right.
Interesting.
So it's not spoken about, but I'm starting to bring this in because when he defined brownout, I said, but that was me. You see, I was functioning, I was operating, but internally I was disengaged. My light had been dimmed, but I hadn't burnt out. So I was turning up and I was working. So when he describes brownout on the well-being curve that I've created, brownout sitting between burnout and anxiety, he describes brownout as the silent slide, where you're slowly disengaging from the outside world. You're turning up, you're working, but you're not introducing new ideas. You're not encouraging growth. You can't see anything positive. You can only see negative things. You're not arguing. You're not stating your case. You're just doing what's required of you, and that's it. Whereas before, you would have been high functioning. You would have been had a good opinion in meetings. You would have brought new ideas. You would have encouraged and nurtured new talent. In the state of brownout, you're not. And the term actually comes from the description of a light bulb. When the voltage drops, the light bulb dims, but it's still working. So that, in electrical terms, is brownout. So in our context, it's where your energy drops, but you're still functioning. The challenge in this position is that eventually, it may take 12 months. Eventually, you're going to say, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And that's what's called a quiet quitter, where unexpectedly that previously high-functioning, highly successful part of the team member will suddenly unexpectedly quit. That was me. So when I read it, I was like, yes, that makes so much sense. The bulk of people aren't sitting in burnout. There's the stage in between, and we hide in this brownout zone. And the key is identifying that in your team members, identifying that in your boss, because here's the big challenge. In the state of brownout, you're unlikely to know you're there because it becomes a state of being, becomes who you are. You're not able to focus on who you used to be. You just know, I'm a bit lost, I'm not happy, I'm not comfortable, I do these things because I have to, got to make money, got to pay the bills, kids go to school, got to pay the rent. So you function. And you only realize you were there once you get out. You say, I just don't want to do this anymore. And you quietly quit. Introduce something new to you. So I'm speaking a lot about brownout now because it just connects so many pieces of this puzzle of how people move from well-being, high functioning, energetic. They get caught up in the stress. And yes, stress part of business. You need to be stressed. You've got to be put under tension to achieve. But remaining there consistently where your body just starts to break down and say, I need to reset. Give me time. I need to sleep. Working 90 hours a week means that you're only sleeping 4 hours a night if you're lucky. Where does it go from there?
Perfect. I think for a lot of us, I think the term brownout was something new, but I think most of us would resonate with it. And I think when I quit my corporate job way back in 2015, I would say it was a brownout moment. Simple. It's and you put it uh, quite well. The midway between anxiety and burnout is the brownout. And you talked of a well-being curve. So how would corporates, and I think corporates should do that and actually measure where their employees are on the well-being curve, how many of the employees are on which part of the curve, and what should they do to get those employees to the right side of the curve, which is the better side. So what do you suggest or what's your advice when you give to corporates and what should they do?
That's a brilliant question. And it's actually not a simple one to answer, because how do you measure somebody's state of well-being? You can ask them how they feel. So to put a metric is not so easy. So what I would look at is, what is the culture within the business of the people? And it is probably this is an unwritten culture, and it's crept in over time. For example, there's a number of key things. I think Professor Kimball talks about 8 key identifying points. And I'm see if I can remember most of them, but you'll get the principle of it. Is, as the leader in the business, you need to have a look at how the people are acting. For example, are people skipping meal breaks because of the work pressure? Or are they eating quickly snacks at the desk because they just don't have time for a break? Are they having a very poor diet? So one of the teams I'm busy coaching and working on a program at the moment, these are IT support, and they're always on the road, driving between a client and client. So when you're hungry, what do? You stop at, in South Africa, the garage, and you'll pick up a pie or a KFC or a McDonald's. So your balance of your diet is extremely unhealthy. So you have a look at that. Another key sign is your team only sleeping 5 hours a night or less? And here's the problem. We boast about it. I only sleep 4 hours. I'm a hero. And you're, wow, you can function at 4 hours? No, you're pretending to. But you remain doing that for 12 months, your body's not getting a chance to reset. So the culture is that people boast about it. And then somebody else who's sleeping 8 hours goes, oh, I'm sleeping too much. Here's a good one. Does IT stress you out? Technology. Are you getting frustrated and angry by your computer, your technology all the time? When something goes wrong, which it does it stress you out? Another one. Are you skipping time to pee because you're too busy? So have a look at the culture within the organization, the unwritten sort of rules of how people are starting to act. That gives you an indication of who is quite likely in 12 months' time to be burning out. It's what you do now, not what you do then. And I've had people say to me, you need to help my friend, they've burnt out. And I say, sure, I'll phone the ambulance. Because at that point, it's too late.
Perfect. I think before I ask Deepak to take over, generally he takes over at 1, but this was so engrossing that I just overshot also my time. But there was one more thing which you talk about a lot is of resilience. So how does the employee build that resilience to basically stay, I would say, abreast of all corporate politics, of all the pressures, and remain aligned on his well-being so that he also contributes to the organizational well-being? Yes, as also he's also taken care of by himself first, then the organization. Because he's to take care of himself first, then the organization take care.
Yes. Self first.
Yes.
Thank you for saying that. And so many people I talk about, especially, and it started more last year in 2024, where they're turning around and they're saying, if I don't focus on myself first, my health, my strength, my mindfulness, my time, I'm of no value to anybody else. And for those high functioning people who are listening and on the call here with us, a key thing is that we believe to be high functioning is it's all about everybody else. Yes, of course, it is about other people. You want to uplift other people and strengthen other people without question. But if you're not strengthening yourself first, how much value are you to anybody else if you're burnt out, lying in your bed, ill, sick, not able to function, high blood pressure, bad heart, no value. So it does start with self. And I don't necessarily feel or believe that there's a magic answer to how do you stay in that place? Because again, it goes back to being each unique person. And so often I hear that it's talking about life balance, work-life balance. But I don't believe there's a difference between work and life. Isn't it just one? And we need to find that correct balance of what's important for you, your family. It goes back to your purpose and knowing your value in society and what your values are and who you want to become. And ensuring who you want to become is that you're working in alignment with the business. Instead of the business dictating who you are, you need to be comfortable within the business. So then you're functioning at a higher level. If you're looking after self first, and it's Jim Rohn, I love Jim Rohn's stuff. I'm not sure if you guys know him. He's phenomenal. There we go. Deepak's going a phenomenal man, where he says, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Definition of success is determined by who you will become. It's not, success is not outside, it's internal. When you know your definition and you're working on you, you're able to then be a better leader, a better person in society, in community, in family, and in business. So I always turn around and say, you got to go internally,
Sure.
not externally. Hope that answers the question for you.
Perfect. Perfect. I think superb insights. I think we loved every part of it. And before Deepak steps in, I think one of our participants, Shweta, she wanted to have her perspective on success shared. So Shweta, quickly, you can unmute and speak before Deepak. Deepak, you can take over.
Sure. Go ahead, Shweta.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Abhijit. And Tim, it is really, wonderful what beautiful words you're using, terminologies related to success. Because, yeah, I truly believe that, I'm going to take two perspectives. I mean, personal and something related to little philosophical. So as per me, I take success little deeply personal and which actually evolves over time. And of course, because you have just mentioned this word resilience, and that resonates so much with me. I mean, that's my experience of life. So, which requires actually the persistence, resilience, and the sense of purpose. Philosophically, if I say success can be, viewed as the harmonious alignment of one's action, which
Wow.
actually, includes three parameters of an individual. That's value, purpose, and true self. Because I'm working in this series, so Mr. Abhijit truly, can connect with it. He's been following things what I'm doing. So it is authentically embracing one's freedom to create or to choose the purpose, whatever, whichever way that person or the individual feels like going. And it's actually the last statement which I would want to add in here is it revolves around the idea of living in, according to one's principles, realizing or achieving the self-actualization and, contributing to the greater good. So, yeah, I feel that that's my bit on success. And there are a few virtues like wisdom, courage, and compassion. I believe in these basics that helps me in flourishing my life.
Yeah.
So this is my take on it. I hope
Thank you.
I made sense.
Sure, Shweta. Thank you for sharing those
So
inputs, your
Deepak,
thoughts.
just
Yes,
one.
Abhijit.
She talked
Yeah.
something of self-actualization. So I think
Yeah.
in Maslow's theory, which we read, that
Yeah.
was the ultimate pinnacle of it. So Tim, any views on that?
Yeah. So my MBA, the degree is working here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming here.
Yeah,
Thank you. Tim, your thoughts on that, what she just said, and about Maslow's hierarchy, and self-actualization.
Goes back to what she spoke about, a definition of resilience, value being value, purpose, and true self.
Yeah.
In order to have that feeling of that self-actualization. And yes, I know Maslow's needs hierarchy quite well. I believe it's being rewritten a couple of times, and
Yes.
having a look these days of there's needs below the first basic, which is your need for shelter and food. I believe that's it's been years since I've reflected on it.
Yeah.
So in order to be in that state of that self-actualization, how many of people in the world are even below that stage of the first basic need of Maslow, where he talks about shelter and food? And I was connected last year with a phenomenal executive coach in South Africa, and she asked some youth in communities, in very, very poor communities, about what it means to be successful. And there's one guy put up his hand and he said, "You've got it wrong. This Maslow guy's wrong." I said, "What do you mean he's wrong?" And he said, "We don't live in that space of our first need is food and shelter."
Yeah.
He says, "What do you mean?" And he says, "Our first need is, can we stay alive another day?"
My God, yeah.
And how many, have a look around the world, the bulk of population around the world are just at that survive. Can I survive another day?
Yes, yeah.
So it depends on who the audience is, doesn't it? That self-actualization. They haven't got a concept of self-actualization. They're like, will I wake up in the morning?
Yeah.
Where am I going to get food? Where am I going to sleep?
Yeah.
Before that.
Yeah.
So very deep, but yes, self-actualization and an understanding of the success principles. I love it. Wisdom, courage, compassion.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Tim, there is now this Maslow's 2.0 and 3.0, and 3.0 says at the bottom, the basic requirement is connected to the internet always, 24/7. If you don't have internet connectivity, forget about food. This is what I need first.
People's perspectives or the important things in life has evolved a little bit differently.
Yes. And you spoke about Jim Rohn, and just 2 days back, I made a video, and specifically to what you said. He says that, if you give time to your job, you will make a living. If you give time to yourself, you will make a fortune. That is what you need to do. Exactly. Yeah. So what I'll do is, there have been quite a few people commenting in the chat, and let's take those comments and let's bring these people in. Let's listen to their thoughts, and if they have some question which you could answer, or if there is an interesting observation, let's do that before I go to my Q&A with you. Yeah. So Anand says, can truly resonate with you, Tim, as I was in the same boat last year. Anand, if you are around, would you like to ask something on this? Yeah, go ahead.
Deepak, I don't want to ask anything. The reason I commented that is, I left my corporate in June 2023. I was in a tier 1 IT company for almost like 23 years. And then it took me almost a year and a half for me to truly understand in terms of what is my true purpose. Because I was good in multiple areas, but I was not able to figure out that one thing. And that is when, in fact, I'm writing a couple of books in which I'm also talking about this, the story of the acre of diamonds, right? Where instead of looking outside, if you looked inside, that is where you will discover that your true purpose is inside, not outside. And people usually try to do it outside, as Tim was also talking about examples of a lot of successful businessmen. So we have seen that examples, right? Best example is Mr. Rajesh Jhunjhunwala, like where he had so much of success, but unfortunately the health, which is probably one of the biggest thing. And there are so many leaders that we have lost in India in the last few years because of health. Right. So
Yeah.
that is where that is what I was trying to comment. So
Wonderful.
it's a long story, and probably sometimes else we'll talk about it.
Sure, definitely. We would love to hear your story. But let me bring in Tim on this point. Something which you raised, it says otherwise that, when you want to be successful, you need to have a niche. You need to have, 2 inches wide and a mile deep and all that. And then let's talk about somebody who is a polymath. A polymath is a person who is good in so many other things that he's not too sure what he's too good on, So your views to success, does it need to be one or can there be many? I call myself a polymath.
The master, what's the saying? There's a saying, I forget.
Jack of all, but master of none.
There we go. Jack of all trades, but master of none. I used to call myself that as well when I was in corporate, because you have to have an understanding of so many broad things if you're running a business. You have an understanding of the finance and the marketing and the people and the HR and the accounting. All you need to have that overview.
Yes.
And at some point, you're going to be drawn closer to one of them than another.
Yeah.
Which then says niche. You're running a business to say niche into your client base or niche into your product.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on what you want. It depends on your position, depends on your level, depends on the circumstances. But what Anand spoke about there is learning, and he got that from reading. So there we go. What I said was, it's a matter of reaching out to those who have achieved already, and books is the most amazing way to find that knowledge.
Yeah.
That it's an inside out job, not an outside in job.
Yeah.
You can't change the world. It's the creating the change in self that becomes the part. And that's exactly what you were speaking about.
Yes. I'm reminded of this quote by Naval Ravikant. He's considered today's most modern thinker, and people, equate him with Einstein. But that apart, there is a quote from Naval which says, if you want new ideas, read old books. That's what he says, exactly to what you said, Tim, just now. Yeah.
Love it.
So I'll read this comment from Gaurav. Gaurav is there and he's live with us. So he says, not realizing own potential. This thought is the most common, in overthinking in the mental place. He says with social media, it's becoming even more difficult to segregate self-thoughts and thoughts influenced by external factors on the definition of success or goals, or, if you are on Instagram, everybody's, flaunting their vacations and their cars and their, those gifts and whatever these latest gadgets they have. Tell us a little bit more about what you were going to say, Gaurav, so that we can get an answer from Tim.
Sure, Deepak. I think, like Tim pointed out about brownout. So that was my situation few years back. And it was like going to office, not really feeling like working. I even reached after travel of 1.5 hours, not feeling working, called in sick, went back home, watched web series, avoiding action. And the root cause which I identified, recently I asked my super boss, and he said, do you travel? I said, no. So he says, you should travel a lot. Just carry your laptop wherever you go. So 3 years back, I would have taken it in a negative sense, but somehow I found it profound and empowering. Reason being, the stress was coming from inside. I think, Tim, you are really, it's great that you are pointing that all the stress is really coming from inside, majority of stress, and not from outside. And always thinking about work, that I need to do this, I need to do that, and not really spending time on focused work. So when I started doing that, I realized that if I'm really working 3 hours, 4 hours of deep work, I think that's more than enough. And then I can really switch off and then pay attention to other things. So that has taken a lot of stress away. So I think this journey, I self-explored, but I think you helped me, the session helped me to introspect that a little bit more.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Gaurav, for commenting and sharing your thoughts. Satinder has put up quite an interesting post, and if I read it, it'll probably take 2 minutes. So, Satinder, if you're around, please unmute yourself and share your comments and then ask your question to Tim. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, hi, thank you. See, I left the corporate world, 10 years ago. And I went through, most of what you're talking. Yes, I was very stressed, but my definition was slightly different, though it's not a part of what I have written, but I'll just tell you. Mine was that, the day I don't feel like going to work is the day I need to call it a day. And I kind of followed that, example. So even though I continued to work 12 hours, 16 hours, it really didn't matter because I was enjoying what I was doing. Twice only I got this feeling that I don't feel like going today. And I said, now it's time. I don't think this should continue. But the other piece that I have also, there are two other aspects which I would like to, have your view. One is, of course, this whole, when you're in the corporate sector, there is this whole world of corporate politics. And if you're in large organizations and in slightly senior positions, you're spending a lot of bandwidth, doing that maneuvering,
Yeah.
And many times I have felt that that's a bigger stress than the work itself. Work one can manage because it's all about the mind and what you're doing and your teams. But this corporate politics is something which really requires a lot of energy, mind space, especially if you're not so good at it. That was one piece. And the second thing also what I wanted to say was that does age have anything to do? Because see, this decision which I took when I was 50, of leaving the corporate, of course, I put my finances, etc., did my maths, but I couldn't have taken this decision when I was 35 or when I was 40. So how do how do people who are stressed in that period, till they reach this kind of maturity, age maturity, I should say, how do you think they should, manage this resilience and the stress?
Amazing. Can I take this?
Go ahead, Tim. All yours for the next 10 minutes.
Thank you for sharing, Satinder. And amazing that your life-changing moment was at 50, just like mine was. That clarity came then. And the reason I hook in on that is when I first started doing what I'm doing now, which is 2.5 years ago, focusing the way that I am at the present, I was approaching other people, business executives, high-functioning people between the age of 45 and 55, finding that they were asking the same questions as I was. Who am I? What's my purpose? Why am I here? You've done the corporate thing for 2-3 decades, and you're going, is this what life is really meant to be?
Yeah.
Surely there's something else. And I was finding a lot of reception and receptivity there. So that because I've been there, I could understand. And now I'd found a way through, then that was the focus. Here's what I found interesting, and it started to change that I noticed mid last year, where I was getting approached by people in their 30s, and even one guy who's 26, asking exactly the same questions as those in their 50s. After just 4 or 5 years in corporate, they're asking the same questions as I was after 30 years, 25 years. So it's the shift in dynamics has changed when you go to the Gen Zs and you have a look at now, and they're asking the same questions now.
Yeah.
They've done a lot in a few short years.
Yeah.
And perhaps they're looking at their parents and their grandparents and they're going, but that's not the life I want. I don't want to wait till I'm 50 to ask the questions. I want to ask the questions now. So that's been a very interesting shift. You see, people are asking these questions and looking for their version of success earlier, and not following the program narrative, the program story, which is what I did. After school, go study, get a career, climb the corporate ladder, buy the house, go into debt, get married, go into more debt, have kids, go into more debt. pay off the bank and sit in that cycle. But why? Because that's what we're taught to do.
Yeah.
But because go back to what's mentioned earlier, because social media is just giving such a different perspective to the world than majority of us sitting here and just having a quick look. There's many people with lots of streaks of intelligence. That's the gray hair. On the call, where now we're looking back and going, okay, I tried that. Is it really filling my cup?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people asking that earlier. So thanks for bringing that forward.
Yeah, I mean, the effect of Jim Rohn, his quotes, even the way you talk, speak, pronounce, and your communication, it simply just connects you with Jim Rohn. Oh, this is a Jim Rohn follower. You can make out just in the way you ended that sentence. When he always on the last word, he would, just give a little bit more importance to that word to just, hammer it in that this is what I'm going to say. That is so wonderful. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Since you spoke about 26-year-old, this generational shift which is happening, what has changed? Why is a 26-year-old wanting to become financially free at 30 or not wanting to work till 50 so that, that light bulb moment comes in at 50? What has changed?
I'm not an expert on Gen Zs. I've spent some time chatting with them and also with an executive coach who specializes in the C-suite market to understand the new leaders that are coming through.
Yeah.
I've spent some time there where she talks about that these 50-something corporate executives are disconnected with the workforce, with the new leaders that are coming through, and finding that there's a lot of young leaders coming in who are now in their 30s and 35. And they're making the older generation feel not only disconnected, irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
And
wow.
Irrelevance on the boardroom level is becoming such a thing because they don't understand. And the market and the client base is so much younger than they are. So there's a lot of studies, not my area of expertise. However, I do feel that it's the access to information is such a big thing. We go back to social media again, YouTube videos, more podcasts, and a lot more worldly information available to say, well, this is actually what's out there. Whereas those in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we didn't have that. We had a much narrower box of what the world looked like. And then consider what's happened over the last 4 years.
So again, I mean, sure. I'll just like to extrapolate what you said and then ask you this question. We are now seeing, young leaders come up, tech companies are being established and they are, led by young people with new ideas, different thoughts. But somehow at the political level, at the governance level, across the world, we, for some reason, are electing 70 and 75 and 80-year-olds to lead us, presidents and prime ministers across countries. I mean, it's not that, half of the world is doing this or half of the world. When will that leadership change happen over there? And what do you think? How do we get there? When will we have a 28-year-old prime minister or a president?
Hey, you never know. Anything's possible. If a nearly 80-year-old could become president, why can't a 36-year-old become president? I like to avoid the conversations around politics because they can get very, very messy. But you've opened up the can of worms. The question may come is, we see a lot of business leaders around the world who make a lot of sense. And they've achieved huge success. And somebody in the end from the media or society says, well, why don't you go into government? And then because in government, I'm not going to make enough impact. And so are true leaders, maybe the wrong type of wording, let's just use that, the real leaders for people. Having a bigger impact by the businesses they run as opposed to from government. They're saying, I don't want to be prime minister. Thank you very much. The concept of government around the world is, it's not a place that anybody many people would strive to want to be, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
See, I mean, you're nodding, Himanshi, you're nodding your head, going, yeah, that's not a place I want to be.
Yes, yeah.
No, she says, no.
Nah.
See, Himanshi doesn't have all these streaks of intelligence yet.
Yeah.
So she's got other wisdom coming through.
Yeah. Let me bring in Himanshi since she's, opened up and we can see her. Go ahead, Himanshi, say something or ask a question if you have.
I've just been agreeing with every word Tim and you have been talking about, and I've been putting my comments. I have more comments, but I've been just putting some of them in the chat here. I've just been enjoying. Just yesterday, I was talking about this with somebody that why don't we have a little younger people with newer perspectives joining in politics, and even the roundtable conferences and big boardrooms, getting new perspectives in is what is required. And 2020 really changed the world. We have more people coming into coaching and consulting world. More people are, waking up to looking at perspectives of things and saying that, we want to stop doing the way things have been happening in the world in the last several years. And in my training programs, Tim, I'm actually a trainer by profession. So hello, everybody. Just a quick one. I mean, I just keep saying this, and there's more people who are agreeing with this, that just because the majority has been doing things a certain way over a large part of time in history doesn't really make it right. And just because the minority has not really had, minority as in when it comes to thoughts is what I'm talking about, right? Just because the minority hasn't really been heard doesn't mean that those thoughts and beliefs cannot come to the surface now. I mean, we have been seeing changes is happening, and I'm really happy that we are in this together. So thank you for giving me this chance to speak, Deepak.
Thank you, Himanshi. And just let me add a little bit of comment, and then we'll take it to Tim. When the minority starts asserting its influence, it's good. But what happens is, many a times they try to take it to the extreme opposite end. And two clear examples of what happened in minority activism and governments either bowing down or listening to them was ESG and DEI. The extreme limit to which they took it, especially in the US, I mean, it became absurd. You wanted change overnight. You wanted to tell people what you are doing is wrong, only what I'm saying is right, and start doing what I'm telling you to do.
Right. We've been quiet for the last 100 years. Now listen to us.
So I think a gradual shift is the right way to go, or a center path, but let's ask our expert, Tim. Go ahead, Tim.
Do you change the way the world lives? Does the majority have to change because the minority demands of it? That's a big question.
Yes.
Everybody is right in their own way.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own definition, go back to success, of what leads to a good life. Go back to freedom. The leader of the free world, and I determine my definition is the leader of the enslaved world. Depends on your perspective, on what you believe. Here's where I go on this.
Yeah.
You live a good life.
Yeah.
Don't worry about everybody else. Don't try and influence everybody else. I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you were born in India. You have one belief system which you inherited from your parents. I'm born in South Africa. I have one belief system which I inherited from my parents. Does that make me right and you wrong, or you right and me wrong?
Yeah.
Live your life the way that you believe is right for you.
Yeah.
And there's a saying that I've lived by for many, many years.
Yeah.
I'll remember the original author of it. It's called The Golden Rule. The Golden Rule. Treat others as you would like them to treat you.
To treat you, yes.
Who was that? Who said that? His name will jump to mind. But I remember that for life. Treat others as you wish others to treat you. You can say it's a biblical, it's a religious, or spiritual, doesn't matter. But if that's a basic principle. So it goes back to, what is your definition of success? What life do you want to have?
Yes.
And if it isn't negatively impacting those around you, live it.
Yes.
Be true to self.
Yeah. We are very, very close to closing time, but I want to ask you this question and then let's see what responses we get from the audience, because I have asked this question to a few people and most of the times it's a different answer. So you are a success coach, and at what time does a person decide that I have now achieved success and I want to coach others to become successful? At what time does that, that hockey stick effect happen? Or at what time do you get that realization, now I've achieved this, now I'm ready to give?
If somebody turns around and says to me, I've just achieved success, I'm going to coach others, I'm going to turn around and go, you've achieved nothing. Is success a destination or is it a journey?
Yeah.
I don't believe I'll ever achieve true success. Why? Because if I achieve something which I aspire to, as I do that, I become a different person. I grow in who I am. And so when you grow, you then say, right, what's next? What's next?
Yes.
What's next?
Yes. Yes.
So at what point do you say, I'm going to become a coach? Himanshi, I'd love to hear that. And every time I connect with coaches around the world, I ask, what is that? It becomes, from my perspective, I'll talk for me. I've been doing coaching, mentoring, speaking for 16 years. It caught my attention in 2008. And I just loved this personal development stuff. I was never a student at school. I was the kid that made the top of the class look clever.
Yeah.
I didn't read. It's just not a thing. But there was something about personal development that I thought, wow.
Yeah.
Look at this information. These great authors have put decades of knowledge into this book. I can learn what they took decades to in a few weeks by reading this and grow as a person, become better.
Yes.
And it becomes a natural thing where people started to ask me questions. And I said, well, I learned this answer from Stephen Covey, from Jim Rohn, from Dr. John Maxwell, from all these other greats.
Yes.
And this is what they taught me, and this is what I applied. And then it becomes a natural transition that in the end becomes a calling.
Yeah.
I believe personally it is about your life experience, not a qualification or a certificate.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Yeah.
Get it wrong. Learn what your mistakes were.
Yeah.
And share with others who are saying, well, I want to do this. What did you do? Well, I did that. And this is what happened. You can go down that path if you want, or I've learned if you go down this path, you may just get a different result. I can't promise it.
Yes. I'll just close with this one sentence. You spoke about coaching and certification, and 2020 and post-COVID, we have 21-year-old life coaches. We have people who haven't married and they are parenting coaches. And we have people who have divorced and are now relationship coaches. So the world is full of people. We just happen to, know a few of them. We have to live with them and everything goes on as usual. All that is required for us is to become a better human being, a better person. If just by me speaking with somebody, talking with somebody, if I'm able to influence their life, if I'm able to change their life just by that 1%, where the person says, I heard you, I listened to you, I read your book, I listened to your podcast, I saw you on an interview, and this thing that you said changed my life. That is who I want to become, and that is who I want to become every day, 1% day a day. So, Abhijit, are you still around, or do you want me to officially close?
You can close, Deepak. Yeah.
Thank you, Abhijit. So let me take this opportunity to thank Tim for sharing his insights, his wisdom, his experience with a crowd who stayed on till beyond 1:30. It's now past lunchtime. Everybody in our family will be waiting for us to have lunch. I think it will be breakfast time for Tim and his company over there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the 231st Bloom episode. Requesting you to join us again next Sunday, same time, online, for the 232nd Sunday Bloom Talk Show. And I know that is Amit and asking me to sing, but now if I sing a Hindi song, I think Tim will feel a little left out, so I don't know what to do. So what we'll do is I'll sing twice on the next episode. Thank you everybody for joining in. God bless us all. Hope to see you next Sunday. Thank you, Tim. Hope to see you and meet you in person soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
so
much.
much, everybody.
Thank you.
Deepak, pleasure.
Thank you.
Same
everyone.
here. Same here, Tim. Thank you.